Okay, can we all rise for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I am thrilled that these televisions are working. We actually got them on.
They're not on.
Well, they're off at the moment, but I did just see an image there. So good evening, and thank you all for coming out this evening. Tonight we will have a presentation by Protect the Highlands titled Upland Alternative, and we are going to have a slideshow, and we have a handout here. So, and hopefully the TVs will be working. So just to set the tone of the evening, in light of the national political environment as well as the crisis throughout the world, I think we need to just all stay what we are. We're all neighbors, we're all friends, we're all community members. We have a mutual love for this community and the beauty of this community. So I just want to set the tone right there. I have said to everybody, we are not going to tolerate personal attacks on anybody or any individual. This is not a public hearing, and it's not a debate. We are here tonight to discuss the topic that is before us. We will take public comment, but it will be limited to what's in front of us, okay? If we get into the woods, as far as, I shouldn't say in the woods, but into the topic of the actual trail itself and the validity of any trail or any proposal, we'll be here till 2 a.m. So I'm going to ask that public comment remain on the Upland Alternative. We did the exact same format when we did the VDC workshop, so it's common for these events. So, Dave, if you're presenting, I assume? Yes. Dave needs no introduction, I don't think. Dave Morandi. That's good. You guys ready in the closet? Almost. Okay.
Is this the first PowerPoint presentation we've had on these screens?
I haven't seen
this
these
is a
TVs
momentous.
work. I hope we can get ESPN.
It's a momentous threshold.
Well, we've had some things on the planning, but not much so far.
All right.
But they're definitely usable and
Yes.
workable.
Your mic.
So I can do the introduction page they have or whatever, and then we can, that's not into the slides yet. It's just kind of a thank you to.
Closer to that mic.
Okay. Is this close enough?
There you go.
Is it good?
Everybody
Okay.
can hear?
So, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to make the presentation tonight. Means a lot, and we're glad to get our side out, so thank you. As you know, I'm Dave Morandi. For people that don't know me, I'm the former mayor of Cold Spring and past board councilman. I'm currently the president of Protect the Highlands, and I'm proudly representing that group here tonight. Protect the Highland was formed in early 2023 as concerns grew over the scale of the fjord trail and the effects this would have on the environment, wildlife, quality of life, and the scenic beauty of the amazing Hudson Highlands. To be clear, very clear, hopefully, we get this message out there sometime. Protect the Highlands is not against the safe route for hikers from Cold Spring to Beacon. What we are opposed to is the trail now being proposed by the fjord, HHFT, and the scale of it. I'm not here tonight to take a deep dive into the many reasons our group does not agree with the trail or trust how it is being represented and sold to the residents, but only to offer a few alternatives for a route from Cold Spring to Breakneck, and importantly, not starting in Dockside Park. I'd like to preface the presentation by saying these alternatives are not without challenge. They're not new. We're not recreating we're not reinventing the wheel here. We have worked on a few parts of it that kind of made sense to us that hopefully will make sense to people. We know there's challenges, but if there's a will and cooperation, I think all those those challenges can be met.
Dave, I just have one question.
Sure.
What is the volume of your group, offhand number of?
I don't know. It's over 300 is all I know.
300 plus. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That have signed up with our group.
Okay.
Cecile, do we have any of the old ones set up or no? Or no, nothing? John's working. Unfortunately, John, our tech person, was kept after work today and had to come back on a later train, so he didn't get here as we expected.
We'll give him a few minutes. Bob, come on, this is your special.
What I can do is I can go through a timeline. There's a timeline on there, and yeah, I can do that. It's just dates, and we can do that, and it'll take a bit. So I wanted to present the timeline because it shows how far we went back, how we started, and when we started actually discussing the trail, which was and how it actually started up, which was right here at the town hall. So in 1991, under New York state legislation, the Greenway was proposed, and it was the the Hudson River Valley Greenway was created to work on a plan to have a continuous walking, hiking trail from Battery Park in New York City to Battery Park in Albany. So this is how it all started here, or we started getting into here, because the local Greenway Committee then came and presented to the board and was asking for input from the community on projects that they could do. So once, let's see, the next was, okay, so in 2000, Hudson Valley Views listed the Hudson Valley as the most endangered list. And this designation draws national attention to the importance of the Hudson Valley historic landscape. And I'd like to just share a couple of quotes from that. It was a designation that really doesn't have to do, it has to do with how important this valley is to all of us that live here. So there's a couple of quotes from the people that were involved there. One was Waddell Stillman. He was the president of Historic Hudson Valley. He said, "There are a few places in the country that can boast the concentration of historic sites that we have here in the Hudson Valley. If the landscapes that surround them are lost or overwhelmed by industrial development or sprawl, their value to the generations to follow will irreversibly diminish." And then Alan Newman, president of Hudson River Heritage, said, "We believe that this designation points to the need to protect the viewsheds and landscapes that are so integral to our historic sites and will inspire a valley-wide effort to inventory the views and landscape that are most at risk and need protection strategies." So this is back in 2000, and obviously it doesn't matter what year or how far you go back. If you take a ride through the Hudson Valley, you'll understand how important it is. In 2002, the Philipstown Greenway Committee, I had jumped a little ahead before, Philipstown Greenway Committee asked for the community ideas and suggestions for projects. The Greenway Committee would then recommend proposals for projects in Philipstown, for which the town board would apply for matching state Greenway grants. The committee has a broad mandate to promote. It's the state's commitment to the preservation, enhancement, and development of the world-renowned scenic, natural, historic, cultural, and recreational resources of the Hudson River Valley, while continuing to emphasize economic development activities, and this is important, remaining consistent with the tradition of municipal home rule. In 2006, the Greenway Committee asked the Philipstown Board to issue letters in support of a resolution designating Indian Brook and Avery Roads as a bike hike trail along Route 9D from Cold Spring border, and a hike bike trail along 9D from Cold Spring border to the Breakneck Tunnel as part of the Greenway system. I've gone back way as far as I could in our papers, editions, past editions, and this was the first in 2006 that they named the Hudson Fjord Hike Bike Trail came up. So in 2006, that was the first time we saw that. Several months later, Hudson Fjord Trail was conditionally designated as a new Greenways Trail. Full designation is contingent on proof of remediation of safety issues to Department of Transportation satisfaction. The 1.57 miles, a bit different than now, of the Hudson Fjord Hike Bike Trail offers direct physical access to the Hudson River at Breakneck Point and Little Stony Point. Majestic views of the river and important connections to several other trails, including 3 previously designated Greenway trails. The Hudson Fjord Hike Bike Trail celebrated in the landscapes depicted by painters of the Hudson River School, The Stories of Washington Irving and Poems of George P. Morris and William Cullen Bryant, and the journalist Nathaniel Parker Willis. Provides opportunities to experience the unique natural and cultural resources of the Hudson River Valley. We up and running yet? No?
Yeah.
Oh, we are. Okay. Looking up there. What's that?
If I look, it'll shut off.
Where to look here? We get another screen over there. We're up to 2007. Philipstown received the New York Greenway Grant to fund the feasibility study and cost study for capital improvements at the Hudson Fjord Bike Hike Trail along Route 9D between Little Stony Point and Breakneck Mountain. The study was conducted by J. Robert Fulchetti and Associates, an engineering firm based in Somers, New York. I sent a copy. I think everyone has a copy of that. If you, I mean, you don't have to look through it. I'm not going to refer to it, but I think it's worth looking through everything there. I think you really got your money was worth back then. It's pretty comprehensive, and we're basically working off that tonight. The Philipstown Greenway Committee applied for the Greenway funding for a feasibility study in order to address longstanding community concerns about the safety of thousands of recreationalists who employ the narrow shoulders and inadequate parking facilities along 9D to gain access to 6 popular hiking trails in the Hudson Highlands State Park and to the beach at Little Stony Point, as well as for bicycle passage. In a PCN article, which was reporting on this in 2007, it states that Breakneck Trail has been polled the most popular day hike trail in North America every year since 2002. So the number of people we've endured all these years and are continuing to, be part of our lives here goes as far back as, 2002 and farther. We've had a lot of people hiking these trails. The feasibility study was completed in the same year. The study called for a multi-use recreational path systems to provide safe access and connection to 6 trailheads from Little Stony Point to Breakneck Ridge, enlarged and improved parking at either end of the corridor, a safe access point to the Hudson River, and improved views of the Hudson River along the entire 2-mile section of 9D. 2 alternative designs are presented in the study. One calls for a minimum of 10-foot wide shared use path which would follow the east shoulder of 9D for the first mile north, then switch the west shoulder for the second mile leading to Breakneck Station footbridge. The path would also run through Breakneck Tunnel. The second option calls for widening both asphalt shoulders to the standard 5-foot width for bicycles along the entire corridor, while creating a separate 3-foot wide pedestrian-only path on east side of 9D between Washburn Trailhead and the Brookhead Trailhead, then switching to the west side of the road from the Brook Trailhead to the Breakneck Station footbridge. The cost of the first alternative was estimated at $2.8 million, and the dual trail alternative came in at approximately $3.3 million. Of course, this is back in 2007. Both alternatives would include improved parking as well as signage, road striping, traffic calming measures aimed at improving safety along the corridor. One of the major hurdles that must be overcome if the project is to be carried out is gaining the cooperation of New York State Department of Transportation, which owns Highway 9D. As John Fulchetti, who led the feasibility study, put it, whether DOT will buy any of this, I don't know. A number of funding options for the project were discussed, including government grants, member items initiated in the state legislature, and bonding by the town of Philipstown. The town and the Greenway Committee will now reach out to senior state and federal elected officials to inquire regarding possible funding. Leadership of the project must also be determined before detailed designs. Funding and project oversight can be addressed. The Philipstown Greenway Committee and the town of Philipstown were mentioned as possible project leaders. Adding to the complexity of the project is a part of the northernmost section of Pro's Recreation Corridor lies within jurisdictions of the town of Fishkill. So that's that section. Then we're up to 2014. So in 2014, and I'll just make this one quick, through a New York State DOT grant, Philipstown Town Board received a grant for $100,000 or at least were promised a grant for $100,000 for the construction of the sidewalk along Fair Street. Let's see, it goes on to that. The sidewalk, in 2015, the Fjord Trail sidewalk was approved by the Village of Cold Spring trustees, and engineering drawings for the sidewalk were submitted at that time. And this was the sidewalk was to be constructed along the north end of Fair Street as part of the development of the Hudson Highlands Fjord Trail. The trail will connect Cold Spring and Beacon, providing a safer path for hikers headed to Breakneck Ridge. The design had been previewed by the Cold Spring Recreation Commission, and at the time I was mayor, and I praised Jeff Phillips, who was the commissioner, who had critiques of the drawings that were all good, and the design was approved conditionally upon the commission's recommendations being followed. So in 2015, the village received the plans, the village approved the plans, and however, 2 years later, in 2017, the Philipstown board had to reject all the bids because they came in at approximately double of what was anticipated. So I bring these up, and I think they're important, is because as far back as 2017, and this is why the period in which we were having meetings at the Chalet and also Dutchess Manor, it was represented that there was going to be, the Fjord Trail was going to start in Cold Spring, and Philipstown, who was actually kind of the lead agency, was actually developing plans and had plans designed all the way up to 2017 when it was rejected. And at that time, I'm not sure why it didn't go out to bid. Maybe you might know.
Well, my recollection is the money ended up going into the parking area.
What's that,
The
sorry?
parking lot is where the funds were donated or designated. And right, the Washburn lot. My recollection was that the village did not want to jeopardize Mayor's Park at that point. That was my interpretation.
Well, I have the plans up here that we'll look at it on one of the slides, but actually they had designed it so that you would push the fence back there to the dugouts, and that would preserve the ball field, so the ball field would still be used as a ball field, and then there'd be a 5-foot sidewalk and then the parking. So it was all in the prints that were approved. But however, unfortunately, it wasn't there. Finally, I have some quotes and some other statements I'd like to read. And this is where concerns started to rise for a lot of us that were familiar with the plan and how it started. And this is from an article, a 4/10/20 article in the Highland Current. Excuse me. Amy Casala, executive director of Hudson Highland Fjord Trail, was quoted as saying, "Over the past 5 years, the project has been reimagined from the ground up," which kind of made me wonder, all the input that we had put into what that actually meant. And this was 2020, which was the COVID years, and there were meetings weren't being held. So, that kind of rose a red flag for me. Also, in that same article, the revised plans call for the project to be wider, multi-use trail with destinations throughout to give visitors something to do besides visit Breakneck. From a January 13, 2022 email obtained through a FOIL request from Ned Sullivan, president of Scenic Hudson, to Eric Coulisay, commissioner of New York State Parks. Breakneck Connector, and this was in the body of the letter sent by Ned Sullivan, sorry. Breakneck Connector and Bridge is a prime opportunity for the governor to announce the creation of a new signature destination in the Hudson Valley that is sure to be the state of national prominence, the Hudson Highland Fjord Trail. And then in March of 2022, in an HHF gave a presentation of the new proposed in March of 2022, the Hudson Highland Fjord Trail gave a presentation of the new proposed fjord trail to the Philipstown Town Board. This was the first time I think everyone had seen that, and that seemed a little bit alarming to some of us. It was evident from the description of the quote that I just read that the trail was now being proposed was not the one that we had supported. It's also been mentioned that it's going to be the epicenter and a number of other descriptions of it that make it far from just a simple path for just safe travel for hikers, which it was initially intended for. So now we get into the visitor center, or the first slide, or I guess the
There are
objective.
seats inside if you guys would like to come in and sit down. There's plenty of them.
So we can pop through those, John, I guess. The objections of the upland alternative trail that we're giving tonight is, one is to protect hikers between Cold Spring and Breakneck Ridge. 2, to ensure construction is in the scale with surrounding landscape and minimize impacts on the environment. 3, respect carrying capacity of local infrastructures and foster a sustainable level of tourism. 4, improve access to state parkland to give people freedom to explore. And that is it for that. Sorry, I don't have a copy here. The upland alternative, and this is what we're proposing. I'm good with the rest. Yeah, that was the only one. I don't know, or maybe I'll need it. Who knows? So this is basically what we're proposing, and which has been proposed before in some way, shape, or form. There's actually 3 alternatives, which we'll see a little clearer. But down in the corner where you see the yellow line, and then you'll see a very faint green line in the very corner. That's one of the routes, and then one up through Fair Street, and one goes through Depot Square, and the other goes right along the tracks to Mayor's Park. So option 1 is the Metro train, is pretty much the Metro train line, and as you can imagine, there's a lot of difficulty with this, but we put this one in there because people had talked about this. Basically, it goes from the train station, and then you'll see as it goes by Depot Square, which is the first building that you'll see lower left there, lower right. And then there's so the problems there are obvious. It's the Depot restaurant, which is right tight to the tracks. But this is also MTA property, and we're not sure we tried to find out what the arrangement was there and haven't been able to. So anything is possible. This one seems like the most difficult. And then as you get farther north of it, you can see the higher tree area there, and that area is what you're seeing going through here on the left-hand side, going back towards Cold Spring. And in that area, it's wide enough, but there are cliffs along there, so that poses problems also. But it does have width. So we can go to the next. One thing I'd like to point out is there was an analysis study in 2022 by the Fjord Trail, but the problem with the study was that it was based on a 10-foot wide multi-use trail. So if you have to stay there, that kind of restricts you from a lot of opportunities or other options that you might have. You know, obviously, if you wanted to do a 5-foot trail, it's going to be much more easier. Or if it's a single path trail, it still could be useful, but you know, that wasn't considered. So that's why some of these I think were looked at, but thrown out. The next is option 2. This is Metro train station to Mayor's Park. As you can see, going from the right out, that's the train station, and then that bumps around the visitor center and down through the Depot Square, and then out and then up to Mayor's Park, up to the Highway Department. This is the area it would bypass behind. We can go to the next. So one of the suggestions, and again, this would all need approvals by village, town, and also MTA, is that the sidewalk that you see up in the left corner where there's a yellow mark, that you do away with that access there, because one of the problems that you face, or the Cold Spring, if you're familiar with the lower Main Street when the trains arrive, is people coming out of that walkway by the tunnel and going across diagonally or any which way, or just standing there taking photos. So our thought was that if you cut that off and made the entrance on the other side, that would bring you to where the crosswalk is, so you go to Main Street, and it also would get all the hikers or all the train people to the restrooms. and then kind of block off that area so that, you can't just wander off into Lower Main Street. So that was just one thought. Option 3 is the train station to Mayor's Park, and this one is the one that's going up Fair Street, which pretty much was the one that was designed in 2007 and had been worked on forever. So the same entrance, we would suggest would come around the visitor center. You would go across the crosswalk and just head up to Fair Street, and then down Fair Street and along that section all the way to Little Stony Point. If we go back one, can we go back one? So a number of things have happened since, or that are helping these trails out, and one is the cost. Unfortunately for the village, there have been collapsed culverts, and drainage along Mayor's Park, which have to be addressed. And at the same time, we have all of the drawings for that section and for the extended sidewalks from back in 2007, or back in 17, whenever it was. So we have a number of things already in place. I believe the village is looking at, as part of that project, and the mayor's here tonight, she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that part of that project would be to actually construct the sidewalk as part of it, and to do as was designed back in the day. So if that was done, that would have to be I'm not certain how that's funded, but it's something that has to be done in the village, and that would save a lot of work and costs. And that the new sidewalk would come all the way from, I believe in what they're doing is from the water treatment plant all the way to the end of Mayor's Park. The next section was after you go past Mayor's Park, and this is another a tricky area. It's a little bit restricted, but it would go along 9D, and this is where the sidewalk was designed in those past prints. These are a bit confusing, not good for the screen, but I wanted to put them up there. They're basically like page 1 is broken in half, so that's showing two sections of it. So it's hard to see, but basically everything was laid out with the sizes of where everything would go and how you would reach Little Stony Point entrance from there. This is part of that section. You can see the sidewalk is now in place. It's really easy and cheap if you can put it on a screen like this, and no difficulty whatsoever. Yeah, and anyway, you can see it's stretching down the west side of 9D to Stony Point there, and there's also a shared bike lanes on both sides of the road. This is from the 2002 Fjord Trail analysis that I spoke of before. And again, this was because of the need for a multi-use trail and how to implement that along Fair Street. You would basically have to cut every tree down, as you can see on the left, in order to get the width you would need on that. So that was in the analysis, but obviously if we had a 5-foot trail or a 5-foot path, that would be a lot easier and manageable. This is the Fair Street facing north, just after Mayor's Park. And as you can see, there's fencing there. It's private property, but the fencing is basically on, as far as we can see or understand, the roadways there. It's a town highway. They have 40 feet right away, I believe, are owned. So the fences could be moved back a ways, and a sidewalk could be installed or constructed along that section. There's the same fence area there.
That's a county road.
It's a county road, yes. Did I say county or state? No, I think I said county. Did I? Yeah, it's county. And then just past that is also a very tight section, which is coming to the intersection of 9D. But again, there is that is county property, and if they were willing to help us on this, or if people decided this was something they'd like to do, then it's definitely possible. And as you see here in the green area, that would be the end of Fair Street, and then the connection The green is the connection to the Little Stony Point. That work has been done by Stony Point. They've, have a path going through there. So that's already there and set to go. This is one area that was brought up, and it's important because it shows that's the entrance to Little Stony Point. As you can see now, also, it's been installed. The Washburn Trail was improved, and there was a crosswalk put through, so that's already in place. One thing that was not done is the entrance, making it ADA compliant, so people could actually get in easier with disabilities to Little Stony Point. You can't see from this picture, but like in the distance, there's a brown sign, and then it's very steep going over the pedestrian bridge over to Little Stony Point. But in the design work, which you see on the left, what was engineered was that you would, bring the pathway along, looping down and back close to 9D where all the parking is there, eliminate most of the parking except for ADA compliant parking spaces or handicap spaces. From Little Stony Point, it gets a lot easier because everything's pretty much in place. The parking lot, and this is not shown, the photo is from before then, but at the bottom right-hand side where it kind of squiggles up there a bit, that's where the entrance is to the Cornish Estate path, and that pathway, do we have photos on that next? So that pathway is this is how it begins. That's the trailhead for the Cornish. That goes to some wooden walkway area, and then back to gravel or earth, and then goes to the paved, which used to be driveway to the Cornish Estate. This is the Cornish Estate with some cardboard cutouts put in for the windows and doors. This is the view from there, just to show how beautiful our valley is. From the Cornish Estate, most of that is, it's not ADA compliant, but obviously it's like it's not a huge slope, and it's all paved, so it's easy, you can easily walk on it. It would be, problematic for someone with, serious ADA issues or people in wheelchair. But it is an area that's wider and definitely is accessible to many more people. Once you hit the Cornish Estate, going down to Brook Trail, it gets steeper and winding. So again, it wouldn't be a place for everyone, but hikers could easily make their way down to the Brook Trail, and then this comes out on 9D again. And basically, this is the I travel quite a bit down 9D and as I'm sure a lot of you have, and you don't see many hikers out on the road or in the road anymore, and I believe this is the trail that they are taking now. They're going around this area. They go across to the Washburn Trail, and then they come down the Brook Trailhead, and they walk along the east side. We have a photo of that, I believe. So this is the east side. That's the very bottom of the trailhead, and there's a path you can see along the guardrail. It's a single path which goes all the way up to the chalet. And then in this section here, this is where it would have to cross the road, and this goes through the tunnel. Another thing that's in place that I don't know if everyone's aware of is the work that's being done by DOT in the tunnel. And what they are doing as part of their plan is basically what was designed, again, in the Falsetti documents and study. So this is actually from that study, and when their recommendation at the time was to, either eliminate or shorten the width on the east side, and on the west side they would widen that so that it would be more comfortable for pedestrians to walk through, and also to enhance the lighting in there. So all of this is now being done by DOT. The lights are up. I don't know if they started yet, but looks like it's going to be a long project, and they're resurfacing all of the walls and ceiling in there, and then widening, and I believe putting a guardrail for the pedestrians on the west side. So a lot of things are in place now. If we were starting from scratch and had to go to DOT, you'd have to get all their approvals, and then you'd have to find ways to fund that, but that's all being done. The one thing that I didn't show, if we can go back to the one where we show the trail itself, yeah. Right there, you'll see, like by the chalet, where there's a, where it cuts back from east to west, and that's where I believe there's a crosswalk that's actually in the proposed plan by DOT. If not, that's where one should probably go, so that there would, pedestrians would have a good view north or south, and vehicles would also.
Just for public notice, the tunnel is officially closed to pedestrians currently. But there is a shuttle service, Mayor, there's a shuttle service provided by request.
Working now, but it's proposed by the DOT for a telephone hail van service.
We got an update today about that, I just haven't read it.
So I think, is there one more slide or no? So the advantage of the upland alternative, and as I said, I'd just like to repeat, that's not like reinventing the wheel. It's not anything shocking or whatever. There are challenges to it. But it's basically, it goes along with what the community wanted and thought and supported, when this whole thing started. So, that's why we're here tonight. But the advantage of the upland alternative is it accomplishes original objectives by protecting the hikers between Cold Spring and Breakneck Ridge. It maximizes use of pre-existing infrastructure and minimizes disruption, both during construction and operation, to surrounding communities. It's cheaper, faster, and easier to build and maintain. It's more resilient to climate change and adaptable to climate disruption. And it's less disruptive to wildlife. And parking remains free and open access. So that's basically it. If you have, I'm not saying no. No. Basically that's it. And again, I would like to thank you all for listening and giving this some consideration. It's appreciated. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to.
Well, I'm sure there'll be questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Dave, I appreciate it. I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the investment, the time, money, and energy that has gone into this alternative. I will open it up to the board. If the board members have any comments on the plan itself, then would like to discuss it publicly.
Thank you, Dave, for that presentation. I think we, as Sean said earlier, we're all neighbors, and we need to work together on this. When I moved to Cold Spring over 20 years ago, I got off the train at the Metro North train station. There was a big sign. I was so excited about the Fjord Trail. I know it's gone in the last couple of years, but it was something that was at the Cold Spring station, and I was excited about it. I am excited to connect Cold Spring to the Beacon and the rest of the Hudson Valley, and also to make sure that everyone has access to it. I am a hiker, but I'm also aging, so I want to be sure that it's accessible. And I also lived on Fair Street my first 5 years in Cold Spring. I know that street has a lot of traffic. It has a parking lot already. It has at least 60 condominiums at Springbrook Condominiums. So there is a lot going on Fair Street, and I think that we all have to come together and try to find a solution that works for everyone, and that also, this is a spectacular community we live in, and the rest of the world is already here. I don't think we're going to see visitation decline. I know other towns and villages I visited throughout the United States have tourism management plans, and maybe we can work together on this. But thank you for coming up with another alternative.
So thank you very much. I think that was very useful. I do have a question. I guess my first comment would just be that, in thinking about, there's been so much discussion about the Fjord Trail and alternatives to it and how to build it in a way that protects the community, right? And I think a lot of that back and forth has improved the Fjord Trail, and it's been ongoing. So You know, I think one question I have is, we all recognize, knowing, you know, our community, that, you know, you mentioned since 2002, Breakneck's been seen as the #1 hiking trail in America. And I think we all know that the status quo, if nothing is done, is that that is going to continue and that visitation is going to continue. So the status quo is not a good option. I think we all recognize that. I'm obviously, as Judy mentioned, I mean, I am just personally all in favor of anything that increases access to nature for people, especially who don't have it. I particularly would like to be able to hike and bike and walk to more places in our community. I think there's a lot of people in our community who support more hiking and biking options generally. I think the debate always comes about scale and about what size is appropriate, and how to do it in a way that doesn't take away from the community. But I'm, you know, my question though would be, because it's very, you know, this conversation about alternatives has been going on, and I do know, or I think I know, that the DGEIS, the draft generic environmental impact statement process, is about to begin, which is kind of the permitting process, right? And any alternative that's not in that DGEIS process can't be considered, or is not actually on the table for the future. So just for confirmation, Dave, do you know, out of the alternatives you mentioned, which of them are going to be considered in the DGEIS as alternatives, and which are not?
Room full of the board or people that are employed by Fjord Trail, so maybe it's better to ask them. But
Yeah.
I don't believe that any of them would be. I believe that the trail, I don't know if they've put a final stamp on their trail, but basically none of these would be included.
To my knowledge, this alternative is not listed. There are 7, I believe 6, 7 at this point, but this one has not been addressed. So, and I'm not sure the legal process at that end, but I'm sure we could find out. Again, that's a draft generic, so
Right.
we'll see what the final will be.
I don't know what's included in that yet, because I
We'll
don't know
see.
if they
We'll see,
finalized
sure.
the plan yet. I would like to just say that one of the, you know, when I hear that people say that things will keep rising, that may be true, and it may be good, but there really isn't any, there is no control mechanisms in there. There's nobody working on actually, you know, trying to control the number of people that are here. I mean, you don't control it by building more parking lots. You don't control it by building an attraction, inviting more people into the area that's already, you know, not built for the traffic that we have. So I think one of the things would be the question, you know, why other places, other parks have some control, some type of ticketing or whatever. And I'm not saying that should cost anything. It could be free. But the mountains can only sustain so much pounding, and so can the village and the infrastructure, and so can the highways. And so I think what I haven't seen is any type of study on how many people the mountains can actually hold. And, you know, you just can't keep inviting them there if you say you love something and you treasure it and you want to, you know, everybody else to experience it by just basically crushing it, you know, and that's being done. So there are ways I think you can control that aren't being looked at all, and maybe there wouldn't be so many hikers coming if it was some type of a ticketing thing, which they do in a lot of other parks throughout the country, and close to here too, not national parks, so smaller ones.
I just say thanks for all your effort on this, but I think there's some merit to what you have here. There's some good alternatives that I think that should be considered here. So, especially, I think, I like option number 1, but that's my opinion only. But thank you for all your effort and work on this and coming today to present it.
I agree. There is some wonderful options that you've presented, and I appreciate the effort. But I think the defining difference between the two is the ADA compliance and the 10-foot wide requirement. So that really would eliminate not all of the options, but a lot of the options that you presented. But is that the baseline that we need to accept? And that's where the question is, and that's when the public input will certainly affect whether we can meet. I don't see how, with the hills that we have in this community and the elevation changes and the terrain and what we need to get around that, other than being in the water, which is what's proposed, that this can be fully compliant. But with that said, I will open it up for, again, we're going to limit it to comment on this proposal for this evening. We'll cut it off at some point. We're not spending the whole evening here. I've been up a long time already, so we'll keep it short. So if anybody would like to come up to the mic and speak about, I'm sorry? Oh, there was? Thanks, Tara, I didn't know that.
And just please come to the microphone too, please, when you're ready to speak. No, sir.
First on the list is, I believe it says Dan Shannon? Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Dan Shannon, resident 156 Highland Road, Cold Spring, New York. And as I have 3 minutes, and as an Irishman, I will not speak extemporaneously, as it is dangerous. I'm going to read from my notes. My family has lived in Cold Spring for 25 years. The natural beauty of the Highlands brought us here, and the wonderful community has kept us here. The Fjord Trail provides an infrastructure to effectively manage the people who come to enjoy the trails and natural beauty of the Hudson Highlands that we as residents are very fortunate to enjoy. The design practically balances a variety of priorities and concerns: mass transit, parking, technology, established communities, and the environment. The current design provides choice and accessibility from the beginning, a trail toward the river from the town through Dockside Park, and an alternate town route through Ferris Street. This plan alleviates possible congestion and provides the flexibility.
We're really not addressing tonight's plan. I'm not hearing.
I thought that's what you said this morning, that we are specifically talking to what was presented today.
Right, and
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I haven't got there yet, but.
I just said, so this plan, the plan,
All right, well, I didn't hear that part, I'm sorry.
I said that, I'll reread it. The current plan provides choice and accessibility from the beginning, a trail toward the river away from the town through Dockside Park, and an alternate town route through Fair Street. So that's specific to what we looked at today. This plan alleviates possible congestion and provides the flexibility for visitors to the trail and the town as well. I support the Fjord Trail plan enthusiastically. The proposal beautifully solves a known problem and adds to this wonderful community that we all call home. Thank you. And collaboration, as you said, builds community. Thank you very much.
Next on the list is Irene Pieza.
Hi, my name's Irene Pieza. I live at 6 Paulding. And thank you so much. And Dave is my literal neighbor. So thank you so much for the presentation and clarifying what your organization, I see the ads all the time, or the full page ads or whatever. Thank you for the clarification. My question or my statement has to do with something I've asked the Village of Cold Spring directly. Has there been any coordination with disability groups, disability advocacy groups? The whole timeline that you provided, I haven't heard anything from one member of an organization that wants to advance the ADA compliancy with New York State parks and the general area. So, that, again, there was an acknowledgement of Little Stony Point's bridge is not ADA compliant. I'm not sure how your organization or your group is raising money to change that bridge or to address that problem. Same thing with the Cornish Estates. We could point out everywhere where it is not ADA compliant, and if that is meant to say none of it should be ADA, like that, what is the concern? That you want everything to be ADA compliant, but you don't have a representative from the town, from any of the organizations who can speak to that directly, other than community and us speaking for that concept. I hope that was clear. I don't know, I was rambling a little bit, sorry.
The basis. That would be a question for New York State Parks, not for us, but.
It's I've sent direct contact information for Disabled Hikers Association to the Fjord Trail people.
Right.
I've brought it up at the village board meetings, and I'm bringing it up here. So I am consistent. And, again, I know it's real buzzkill that can ruin the scenery a little bit, but that is a law that's been in place since, I think, 91, and it was Republican Senator Bob Dole, who was a war veteran, who was the real spearhead for that. So that goes across all kinds of concepts and everything else, and that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to say, with accessibility, when we discussed it or mentioned it earlier, I was thinking also of the ADA compliancy issue. It is a requirement that we can't overlook, but it is difficult in the mountainous area, but I agree that we have to look at that.
John, I was just going to say, when you made the comment earlier that ADA compliance, you say would require that 10-foot leeway, so...
The width, I believe, is an HHFT requirement.
Oh, yeah.
That's a shared path limit. That's a minimum for a shared use path. So
Well,
that
and
it can
I'm
be
not,
ADA
I'm not sure where that
compliant.
standard comes from, because the rail
That's a
trail.
NODA standard.
The rail trail that we ride for hours does not meet that in many places, but I'm not going to discuss.
I was just
But the
clear, yeah.
ADA, I'm concerned more about the grades, that, percentage of grade to meet ADA requirement is, and I'm not an engineer, but I know it's pretty slow slopes.
Okay, thanks.
Next is Michael Gillorn.
That's fine, no problem. Hi, Mike Galorn. I live at 15 Orchard Street here in the village of Cold Spring. I've been here for about 10 years. I support the Fjord Trail. I support the design of the Fjord Trail from Dockside. I will address the plan. I want to go back to a comment, though, that you made, John, regarding the 10-foot width requirement being, driven by the ADA compliance, which maybe, as MJ just pointed out, is not entirely the reason for that. I think another part of that width requirement, if you look at the ORCA data, so ORCA, just for those of you who don't know, is the consultant that HHFT hired to look at the visitation. It's to absorb the load of pedestrian traffic that is occasioned by 200 some odd hikers getting off the train and trying to make their way to the trails. So you could say, well, these people can eventually take the train directly to Breakneck. That's not a problem. But the data that we have from the State Parks Department and also from ORCA shows that visitation to Little Stony Point and Bull Hill is a significant part of the visitation of the park. So these people are going to need a way to get from the train station to Little Stony Point, not just from the train station to Breakneck. So I think, I respect the amount of research that Dave put into his presentation, and the previous studies of this route along Fair Street. Proposing that is the only solution without acknowledging the fact that you will never be able to make that sidewalk wide enough to accommodate all of those pedestrians without some people going off into the road is a problem. So what I would hope is that any group or any municipality proposing solutions is going to study that aspect of the problem before saying, oh, we can just do X, Y, and Z, right? This nuance there about the width, right? It's very important to me that it be ADA compliant, because by the time this thing is built, I'm going to be in a wheelchair, right? But all of that aside, I think if we want to keep people off of Fair Street, we want to make that safe for people to use Mayor's Park, drive down Fair Street on the weekend, God forbid, it's got to have infrastructure that accommodates that pedestrian load. Thank you.
Paul Thompson.
I guess we're a bit of a double act, Mike and I. First start, well, I'm Paul Thompson, so I'm 8 New Street, opposite the boat club down near Dockside. So I'm just a few blocks from the entrance to Dockside Park. I'm really pleased today that the temperature of the room is a good deal less than it was in May last year, and much more friendly. I strongly support any initiatives in the village, in the town, to improve walkability, hikeability, runability, whatever. I welcome the constructive options as well that Dave has presented us with in quite some detail. I guess where I have concerns, and these have already been voiced, is that for those with disabilities or not that able, there's no solution here for them. It would really mean that they just can't get access to the trail, a trail that the rest of us able-bodied can do, and I think that's a major problem. I strongly support, always have strongly supported access through Dockside Park. Why? I think it would be a great amenity for the village and the town to get access to the trail safely, with ADA compliant infrastructure right from the heart of the village. I'm conscious of neighbours that are old, that are young, that push kids in strollers. They're really looking forward to the option to just walk down to the waterfront and get straight onto the trail and head to Little Stony Point. Presently, the Fair Street is just not an option for them, even with sharrows and shared paths and so on. I think ultimately the great thing would be that we could just get better access to the river, the riverfront, the waterfront. There's very few sections of the river in this part of Philipstown where you can get to the river. You can get to it at Little Stony Point, you can get to it down at the village, but beyond that, most of it is closed to us because we've got a railroad and we've got Route 9D in our way. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Patty D'Amato.
Hi, Patty.
I'm Patty D'Amato, 13 Stone Street, Cold Spring. I support looking at other alternatives to the fjord trail starting at Dockside. We're talking a lot about the people who get off the train, and they do get off the train. They pass my house. We've met people from all over the world. What we're not talking about yet is the increase in vehicular traffic that we're going to have. There's limited accessibility to the village of Cold Spring. Do you remember July 9th of last year when we had the flooding? Do you remember 2 weeks ago when there were trees down on 9D and 9? You literally cannot get into Cold Spring from 9 or 9D. I was one time stranded at what was the Duchess Mall because every road leading to Cold Spring was closed because of ice and downed trees. So the people who are coming here by car are coming from Rockland County, they're coming from eastern Westchester County, they're coming from New Jersey, and they're coming from Connecticut. They cannot take mass transit to get to the village of Cold Spring. For those of you who are looking forward to bringing your children to the trail starting in Dockside, where you'll be able to teach them to ride their bikes, where you'll push their strollers, how are you going to get there if you don't live in the village of Cold Spring? You're going to drive. Where are you going to park? You'll say, I'll come during the week. Well, during the week, if you've driven down Main Street, there are FedEx trucks, There are delivery trucks delivering to Le Bouchon, to Catherine's. Last week, there was an enormous charter bus parked in front of the Village Hall. We have had a van stop outside of our house, unload about 20 people and their box lunches, sitting on our stone wall because there was no place for them to go, but also because they felt they could do what they want. Once you start this trail in Dockside, you're going to be opening a can of worms. You're increasing the number of people who want to come here. And while on one hand, that's a wonderful thing, I love it here. But on the other, it's ignoring the reality of what it's like to have all of these cars coming down. We have had a car pull up because a car on Stone Street was not going fast enough, literally pulled up on the driver's side on our sidewalk to pass them by. Traffic last fall in October was backed up to Downey Oil. It backs up on 301, and when the people are coming over from Connecticut and so on, you'll have the increase on 301. At the meeting at Duchess Manor, I listened carefully to the traffic expert who talked about suggestions for dealing with the traffic. One was to take mass transit. They're taking mass transit. Another was to carpool. They're coming with their families. They're carpooling. Another was to send out a massive social blast to let them know that Cold Spring is full. Don't go to Cold Spring. Some of these people are having a hard time handling the parking on Main Street with the new parking provisions. They're not going to be listening to these massive social blasts. Talking about electronic signage, saying Cold Spring is booked, go up to Duchess Manor or whatever. 90 is one of my favorite rides. The idea of having these signs is very upsetting to me as well. So I think we need to consider what is being opened by creating the trail that is going to draw all of these thousands of people. We love our community, but there are people who live here who have to deal with the realities. And those of you who live in the surrounding area are also going to have to deal with it. You go to urgent care on a Sunday, get a prescription. You have to get to Drug World before it closes at 2 o'clock. You're stuck in traffic. You're not going to get there. You want to get to a Haldane football game, bumper-to-bumper traffic. There are a lot of issues that need to be considered and discussed, and I'm glad for the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Dar Williams.
Hi, Dar.
I want to say I think that was a brilliant description, thank you, of the problems that to be managed. And I have a faith and an optimism, and I'm known for perhaps sometimes, well, for my optimism about where there is a will, there's a way to manage traffic. And I've seen, because I've traveled a lot, places that do manage traffic for sites like this. So specifically to this, and I really hope that it is very much within the purview of this great presentation, I am a supporter of the dockside entrance because not just access, but also clarity. And I have been told by some that, actually, why do we need something that's ADA accessible? Perhaps we have to leave this as a sort of a wild place because we are not an urban place. And I see us as, I see that there are wild places, but there are places that are adjacent to wild spaces, and I experience our town as adjacent to wild spaces, both to the Hudson River and forest is protected by the New York State Parks. We have always been that in-between space that provides trails, roads, boat docks, and trains that allow residents and visitors to move from our town into the natural, cultural, and historic wealth of the historic Highlands region. As a traveler, I am grateful for the places that allow me to venture safely, clearly, and accessibly into the natural beauty of the places I visit. River walks are one of the best ways and only ways I see safe in exploring and reflecting outside of commercial areas. And that would mean people being able to clearly and accessibly find their way to that dockside entrance. And as to accessibility, I look forward to the twin advantage besides clarity, which is the access to the Riverwalk. I look forward to having a place where in 2054 my children can guide me in my wheelchair on a quiet weekday morning. Also, as a traveler, I have seen miles and miles of malls, outlet malls, super Walmarts, and all other megaplexes, and I experience river walks, again, clear, accessible, beautiful river walks as an antidote to environmental degradation and social isolation that come from rampant consumerism. Again, the clarity of the dockside entrance. I believe I've heard every single argument against the dockside entrance to the Fjord Trail by people I absolutely love and trust, and I still believe it to be an enormous gift to our community, to our local businesses, and to the world in that order. Thank you.
Fred Osborne.
Good evening. My name is Fred Osborne. I live at 365 Old West Point Road in Garrison. My family has been here since the 1850s. I've lived here since 1987. When I started walking the Cornish Trail driveway, the Cornish House driveway, I kept thinking, why isn't this a bikeway to get people to Breakneck? And I thought all it needs is another end of the road gently sloping. What we have is Brook Trail, which I can't do. So I represent mildly handicapped folks. Some of you who have canes have learned, as I have, that you get lots of sympathy when you carry a cane. People are really helpful, which is why I carry it. But I was delighted, Dave, to see you folks recommending use of that beautiful Cornish road. And, but the other end of it is the problem. I can't do the Brook Trail. So I thank you for giving a good presentation and lots of nice ideas in there. But my needs for ADA compliance overwhelm my other respect for things. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Timothy Haskell.
Hello, I'm Timothy Haskell, 13 Church Street. I am going to stick specifically to this presentation. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it does seem like other than the sidewalk on Fair Street, it is mostly everything already exists and people can do right now. So there's that. But the Metro North suggestion, since you even sort of was like, I don't think this is a thing, I agree. I don't think that's a feasible suggestion. So for the most part, I've been at a lot of these meetings, and for the most part, I've seen portions of the Fjord Trail, not the Cornish Estate, but portions of the Fjord Trail, similar to what was presented tonight. And, I guess I could be wrong, maybe I missed something, but it seems like this is mostly stuff that already exists and can happen already. And someone, I'm not as, I should start walking around with a cane. It seems like a good idea. But my knees are pretty bad. And I actually would love to have a more flat surface that I can walk a great distance to. And I think that was like, to me, it wasn't so much the hiking and how can I get to Beacon by hiking. It was more like, how can I get to Beacon and walk alongside the Hudson River and see that beauty and make it easier on me to do and probably do often. And that this doesn't really do that. I mean, I'd probably do something like this every once in a while, hopefully. But so yeah, I mean, I think this was a nice like outline of what you could do, but I don't feel like it addresses what we're trying to do. So that's all I got to say about that.
Robert Plant?
Good evening. I'm Robert Plant. I'm president of the Springbrook Condominium Association. So our only concern is Fair Street and the Fair Street route. I mean, we get an enormous amount of traffic on Fair Street right now. And people come on our property and park in our parking lots and all kinds of things. I mean, just and as that traffic increases, you know, we're kind of concerned about it. Also, the Fair Street by Mayor's Park is already a construction site, and that project hasn't even started yet. So, and the way the site is, it already pushes people into the road right now. So I invite people to come down on any weekend and see what happens on Fair Street. So, particularly with in October when the leaf season. So, I think Dave presented a lot of very good ideas, but we're obviously, because of the concern about Fair Street, very much in favor of the dockside route. Although I realize that, you know, that the people who live in that area, that are going to have an impact on them as well. So my only purpose here tonight is just to hope that keep in mind what happens on Fair Street, because people are going to come from the train station, and I mean, there's various proposals about let's start this thing in Little Stony Point or something. No matter what happens, people are going to get off that train and walk down Fair Street unless we propose some other kind of route for them to take. An alternative. So that's my only purpose here. I hope we'll just keep what happens on Fair Street very much in mind. So, thank you.
Two people signed the same line, Ed Fortier and Wiley Wang.
Wiley's my husband, so I'm going to speak for both of us.
Sure.
Anybody who's married knows how that goes.
Get a little closer to the mic
Yeah.
if you want.
So I really just have two very precise points. One is that we would support, to the extent possible, that the project be ADA compliant. We think that's a very important part of this. And there needs to be a route other than Fair Street, because even at current, it's completely overwhelmed. And I'm not even sure what you could do. I know there was the proposal here for possibly widening, as Mr. Plant spoke to the section beyond Northern. He would know better the conditions down there, but I know between Main Street and Northern is a complete disaster on the weekends. And everybody's pushed out into the streets. So many times I've cringed as a car whizzed by, people who just think they're in the country. And it's just unsafe. So just those 2 points, ADA compliance and an alternate to Fair Street, please. Thank you.
Susan Peel.
Is everybody else freezing?
Is any what?
It's freezing in here.
Oh, I know I've got this.
You could hang meat in this room.
So I'm part of Protect the Highlands, but I also just wanted to speak because I live on Fair Street also. We actually live across the street from Ann and Wiley. And what I love about alternative routes, as Dave presented, I see it as 3 routes that could all work together, not one. But it still maintains our village as a village. What's happening with this idea of a fjord trail is it's putting a new thing in our village that's going to attract people. And we don't need a new thing to attract people. What we need are safe means to get hikers off a train and going to where they're going. If we start saying a fjord trail starts in Cold Spring, we're not going to just attract more people on the trains, we're going to be attracting more people by car. And so our roads can't sustain that. We're inundated. Our infrastructure of the roads can't sustain that. Our housing can't sustain all these people walking by it all the time. Whether or not we ever have a fjord trail in the village, there are going to be hikers getting off the train. I'm a hiker. The most direct route is Fair Street to the trails. I'm sorry, it is. And so they're going to keep going on Fair Street. So what we're trying to do with these options are say, okay, let's keep our town and our village a village and a town, and get people to safely get off a train and find their routes through our town, not a trail, through our town. They can stop and get a donut, they can do whatever they want on the way, and get them safely out into the trails without bringing a new attraction and bringing yet more people. That's what I was saying.
What is the thing you're talking about? I missed
The
that.
thing, oh, good, thank you. If you think of routes through a town, routes through a village to get from point A, the train, to point B out there on the trails, it's still the village. But if you suddenly start calling a fjord trail stuck on the end of a village main street, and you say, we have a fjord trail now, that's a totally different can of worms. And what I'm saying is, let's keep our village and our town a village and a town, not a concierge service to a fjord trail. And let's find easy alternatives, and I'm sure we can find an ADA compliant one, that get people through our village to where they're trying to go without bringing in a new attraction. So,
He's already coming. You're up.
Hi, thank you. Malachi Labrie Cleary. I'm a lifelong village resident. I live over at 20 Mountain Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a avid bike rider. My daily commute actually tracks very closely with the proposed route of the Fjord Trail. I work in Newburgh, and I get to work solely by train and bicycle. And my commute is lovely. The mountains are spiritually uplifting every day, and everybody should have the opportunity to experience that. I support the Fjord Trail beginning at Dockside for all the reasons that were just mentioned, and I won't repeat. With that being said, I really respect the work and creativity that went into the upland alternative. I think there's some really compelling ideas in there, particularly the route any route starting at the Metro North train station directly, would be a elegant solution to make it easy for people to turn left and then immediately be heading out of the village on the trail. But my understanding is that HHFT has looked into this option. I've looked into it personally, and it's just a complete non-starter for the Metro North because of the 25-foot setback rule. Even if the trail were to get a little shorter, I don't see them making an exception on that rule. So the trail must start at Dockside. That is the best option, and I think it would be helpful to think of the trail starting at Dockside, or being one of many entry points, I should say, at Dockside is less of, it's less of an attraction and more of a visitation management solution. So the Fjord Trail having an entry point at Dockside, okay, maybe it's an incentive to come to Cold Spring, but if it is, it's just as much of an incentive to leave Cold Spring. It's a grand exit from the town. You come to Cold Spring to go to the trail. So why not make the exit from Cold Spring the best, most well-designed, spiritually uplifting exit we can make it? So, thank you.
Fred Martin.
That looks like a lot of writing.
I rewrote it. I toned it down. I tried to keep the temperature low. So anyway, thanks for this opportunity to address the board and the ideas brought forth today. I think. Sorry. Okay. I'm usually the first one to grab the microphone. So I do appreciate the ideas brought forth today about how to channel folks out of Cold Spring to the trails. I think it's a step forward from what we've heard about, just wish it away and have it start at Little Stony Point or Breakneck, which I don't think solves anything. But as you've seen, these ideas have all been seen before. They're retreads. They don't fix anything. It's just more of the same. And as we know, traffic does increase over time, and amenities can be brought, and infrastructure can be created to deal with that. So I think what we really need is infrastructure to improve access, remove barriers, enable flow. And as Dar notes, this has happened successfully in all kinds of places across our country, not so far away. I mean, there are many good examples of this. And so there's reason to be optimistic that we can solve the current problems. These are current problems that have grown for 20 years, nothing yet done about it except for, lots of design and talking, and hopefully we can get to some solutions together. So finally, I just want to say, as our supervisor noted, we are neighbors here. I want to stay neighbors with you. But also we're neighbors like in a broader sense, I think in the sense that any we meet in the walks of life, like the Good Samaritan, hopefully, these are our neighbors. And, as the person from Stone Street noted, many great people have come by and enriched the experience, and we have diversity coming through Cold Spring, which I think, through Little Stony Point, which I think is amazing. It's actually great for us, and I think we need it. But altogether, I have to decry neighborliness, which really devolves to protecting our little slice of heaven. That's the kind of thing we have to avoid. I think we need to remember, yes, we are adjacent to parks. Parks are the best thing about New York State. I think it's a competitive advantage, but it's really good for our health, our mental health, our ability to get out into nature. And it's not just for us, it's for all. So you're here talking about state land. 99% of this is public land. You can't put barriers up. You have to enable the flow to it. And I think that's what this is really what we should be focusing on. I know there are alternatives, and they will all be studied. And I appreciate that people are thinking about, instead of just saying, just start outside of Cold Spring. I mean, that's not helping the current situation. So that's all I have to say is let's be real neighbors, and love thy neighbor. It's a good start.
Kaylin Martin.
Testing. No, just kidding. Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. So I'm Kaylin Martin. I grew up in Philipstown. I've lived in Philipstown my whole life. I've worked on Main Street since I was like 16. And I feel like what we really need to be doing is welcoming people in, making sure everybody can, be a part of this community and making sure that, you know, everyone can enjoy what we get to enjoy every day. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing. I love bringing my friends up from the city, from, you know, New England, from California, wherever, that, you know, I've gotten to meet all these great people. And I love being able to bring them to this town. It's like an incredible gift to share with my friends. But unfortunately, with this, you know, these new alternative plans, I wouldn't be able to bring some of my friends because they are disabled. And who are we to say that some people can be on a trail and some people can't? You know, I don't think that that's really for us to decide. I think that we should be making as much effort as possible to making our, you know, this beauty that we, you know, get to enjoy, right, accessible to everyone. So obviously it's been mentioned over and over again that a 5-foot, you know, I guess width trail, wouldn't be able to do that. We need to have the 10-foot, you know, just try and wheel 2 wheelchairs next to each other and you'll see that you need more space than 5 feet, you know? So I think that it's nice that, you know, people are putting in, you know, all this effort and, you know, working on trying to, you know, create new plans. But I think that it's really important that we prioritize each other, and that doesn't stop, you know, if somebody, you know, isn't, or if somebody is disabled, you know, that shouldn't prevent somebody from being a part of this community. And yeah, so that's all I have to say.
Mayor Foley.
I'm not here to opine. This isn't a village board meeting. The presentation is being made to the town, and I know that we'll keep it short. I know that we'll continue to have these conversations at the village level. Mayor Emeritus Morandi said if anything needed to be corrected about Fair Street, I should do that. I just want to make sure we all understand what's actually going on Fair Street right now, and what the construction is, and how it's being funded. In the July storms last year, an already undersized culvert failed dramatically. The engineering to replace that culvert has been intense because it takes all of the water from the mountains behind us, from Bull Hill, from the north side of the village. All of it goes to that one location on Fair Street. And so we had to do I'm never going to get it right, an H&H study, hydrologic and if there's an engineer in the room, to know what size we needed there. So it's a 36-inch pipe right now. We need 2 42-inch pipes, and that gets us just about under the 100-year flood, which is what we had last year. So that was a FEMA site. FEMA declared it ineligible later. The damages under FEMA would have included all that stretch of Fair Street, plus some other contributing problems on the slope above Fair Street. FEMA declared us non-eligible because the roadway is eligible for federal highway money. Federal highway says we're eligible for the one pipe that runs under the roadway. So right now, we are arguing among federal agencies, and right now we're paying for it. So that's what's happening on Fair Street right now. That's why it's taken so long. The engineering is complicated, and we're waiting for permits from the Army Corps of Engineers and the DEC because the pipe discharges into the Hudson River. So it's super complicated. Fair Street's really complicated, and we're not just putting up fences and forgetting that it has to be fixed. It's a problem that must be addressed, and we're working on it. We will have to front that money, and then depending on whether Federal Highway picks it up or FEMA picks it up, we might get 75% back. We might get 80% back. We're not going to know that for a long time. So for now, villagers are paying for that. And we're doing our best to get it done. We do have designs in place. We're moving ahead with the infrastructure. That is all designed, waiting for permits. 2 weeks ago, you can review our public record. We talked about the redesign of the parking lot at Mayor's Park. It can be done to accommodate a 5-foot sidewalk and parking and a regulation baseball field. But that's about as wide as you can get in that part of Fair Street because of the slope. So just making sure the record's clear on what's going on Fair Street. It looks like nothing, but it ain't nothing. Have a good night.
That's it.
There's nobody else on the list.
Okay, thank you all for this evening, and I appreciate the way the room just stayed polite and calm, and it was a good evening. So we will digest the information, hopefully propose some options to state parks and as well as HHFT. We did receive a letter on Friday from HHFT offering up some possible compromises between Dockside and a proposed delay of opening it into Dockside, if that in fact is what happens. I would prefer we've had enough for this evening. I think we could take it into another workshop or to a regular town board meeting. So the board has an opportunity to digest the information we had. It is different than what we had discussed at a prior meeting with the chair and a representative from the HHFT board. So I would like some time to discuss it with my board as well as with the other municipalities so we can come to a conclusion and make a presentation back to HHFT. So with that, I'd like to wrap up. Anybody, you guys have anything else? No, we're good. So thank you so much. Have a good evening.